Hello, my name is Sandra Demert. I'm with Goldbelt Heritage Foundation, and my Haida name is Goodnight Higgins, and I'm from Prince Wales. And we are having the round table here, and I'd like to personally thank my elders and the youth ambassadors who have worked extremely hard to organize this event. And I hope that you guys all enjoy yourselves. And the round table is a part of the wellness grant. And we meet once a month and we talk about issues around school or issues in our community. And we kind of support each other, the elders and the youth. And it's been a real pleasure working with the elders and the youth in Juneau. And Goldbelt is a wonderful foundation that encourages language healing, encourages wellness, and encourages youth to be involved in. We spent all summer with the youth ambassadors picking berries and gathering tea and rose hips, and we jarred salmon. I know Philip did a lot of the jarring. He did quite a bit of the smoked salmon that we'll give to you guys later on, but I just hope that you all have a wonderful afternoon with us. Thank you. And Dion Caliente is here, and she's been very encouraging of the youth, and I'm just in awe as she, includes all the youth, and she has wonderful relationships with the elders and the youth in the community, and I'm excited to learn from her. Dion, could you say a few words?
So what I'd like to share with everyone is we worked with the Juneau School District and a number of other organizations this last year as a part of a language task force. And out of that work, many people felt that a language healing gathering was needed. And I know that's been said over the years. Florence Marks Shakely has said that we need this event. And for us, it's with heavy hearts to have this event because I feel like it's years late. And I think of all of our fluent speakers who have passed and how much we dearly miss them. And when we tried to envision what would a healing event look like, it was hard to get a grasp on it because if you try to define healing for us as a people, it's each of you, your individual journey. We can't, which is probably why we wrestled with it collectively. If we try to define what does healing look like for all of us, we have to just affirm it's an individual journey, it's the hero's journey, which each of you all have to share with each other. And that's why we thought roundtables. Barbara has always said it best that our curriculum should always be based on our oral narratives, and our oral narratives because those are based on our stories and our journey as a people. And we wanted to try and plan an event that would allow for each of you to have your voices heard. And that is why we connected with First Alaskans Institute to talk about the roundtables, because they do such a wonderful job in assuring with their annual conferences and their events that everyone's voice gets heard. And that's our goal throughout the day. And if you can see the rhythm of the day as we tried to plan it, it does follow what a week would look like. We have a part in our day where we're sharing our stories, and that may involve some grief. And as we think about what we've lost in terms of our language, in terms of what we hoped and dreamed for each other and for ourselves, but then we want to not hold on to that, and we want to let it go as best possible. and then in the evening, hopefully have a more happy time together and thinking and envisioning, what do we want moving forward? What do we want for our children, for our families, for our community, for ourselves? We have all chosen to work through our need for our language and our culture and our education systems and in our communities and in our lives. And we do our best to hold on to that. And how can we encourage each other? How can we work together? I think that notion of despair is something that maybe everybody wrestles with if you feel like you're out on a limb by yourself. And hopefully collectively by the end of the day, we'll realize we're not alone, that we're on this journey together and we can strengthen each other. So Gunuk Chish to each of you for coming today. It's good to see all of your faces.
We only have a short amount of time with each other, so I want to acknowledge that from the very beginning. Our time has been cut short a little bit, and so we apologize for that. We want to honor our time together, so we'll keep our comments short, and then we can just go into our discussions at our tables. And so First Alaskans Institute, our mission is to lift up our people so that 10,000 years from now, our people will know who they are, live out who they are, and love who they are. So we're a statewide nonprofit. We are based in Anchorage, but our work is all over our communities. We're also very excited and thankful to be here. Our communities have been calling for this for a long time. In the 10 years or more that First Alaskans has been having conversations around the state, we've heard again and again the importance of sharing our truths, talking about the hurt, talking about it together so that we don't have to face it alone. And so we've begun something called Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. I'm just going to let my sister here just speak briefly about that.
Awesome, thanks, Kunmigu. We heard this morning that when we share these stories and we hear these stories from our elders, it helps our youth understand who we are. And so one of the things we talk about in Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation is separation. And a lot of us, myself included, when we learn our languages, when we hear from our aunties, when we hear from our uncles and our grandparents, it helps me return to who I am. And so closing that separation that happened to our people, closing those gaps. It's a response to the call from our communities, as Kunmigu said, for decades, setting a record of truth, making safe space to share our truths, and righting the wrongs that happened, and also providing access to healing through all the different ways that our communities need, and making space for everybody.
So at this time, we've been up here long enough talking at you all. So we'd like to invite each of you at your tables to go around and introduce who you are and where you're from. So let's have everyone do their introductions at their table, and then after that...
I just want to add to that. I'm really happy that this is happening because it appears that we get reacquainted with each other. Even though we're all from different communities, we get reacquainted with each other. Just like my friend here, we both went to Todd Cannery together back when that cannery was open. And it was unusual that she would sit there and I didn't even recognize her.
We used to be lunch together once in a while. Pretty, yeah, pretty.
My English name is Claire. My name is Carmen Jackson. I am adopted Dutch lady, and then I'm a child of the Kikusadi and Sitka. And I am just starting with the Sitka Native Education Program.
I would say Andy served, before being on our representative, served on our school board for 15 years, and she was one of the fiercest advocates for place-based education, meaning making sure that the history and the knowledge of the people of the land was included in our curriculum. So she was a really good advocate for that. We got to work together.
Yeah, that's how Lisa and I got to know each other and become friends. And Lisa has taught me some things and still learning. So thank you, Buddhist Chief.
I was adopted by the Peratrovich in the Raven House, and by Jimmy Johnson and Charlie Walters and Joe Grenache.
So we are going to start our next, this first question that we're going to contemplate and think about and discuss at the table is going to be, what did your grandparents want you to know? So it's pretty open-ended. So you'll just go around at each of your tables and discuss this question. I'm going to ask the youth to take some notes. We'll come around with the mic, but so you won't be surprised if when we ask you to kind of give a little update on what you discussed.
For us curriculum developers and those studying to learn how to bring our culture back with a true Tlingit methodology, that's where the question is going. So what did your grandparents want you to know? Because that's going to help us then inform the next part, which is what do we want our grandchildren to know? Okay?
And on the drum, when they start working on the frame, the bottom frame, that frame, they all had their hands on it. Bring the strength with this drum every time they beat it. And when they got through with the drum was made not one day.
Okay, so 15 minutes.
It took
we'll interrupt
many days. They
so
had
I apologize in
potlatch,
advance.
they had Indian dance, they got together, and everybody, all the Shawatis around the table, like we have here, round table. Here, all the ladies around, they're dancing while the drum was being made. So that's why it was called the sacred drum, because all the drums were being burned by, I won't say who was burned. So when they got through the drum, my grandfather was in charge, Ike James. He started the drum. They started putting it together. They stretched it out and they tanned it. They didn't send it anywhere. And when it was all through, it was all made, they put it in the smokehouse. They smoked it with altar wood. And then it was brought down for the big party. And then the Daltons came over Cancun, the drum was presented out. The drum was, I believe, maybe 35 or 40 inch round. The drum it had to be tuned with a kerosene lamp. It was tuned and one person had oil in their hand, the other person had powder. They put the oil in the bottom, and the other person put oil on the top. That's to prevent it from splitting. When after they all through that, they start singing. They don't hit the drum. They go dum, 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 dum. Comes to that tone, the far tone, because all the tribes are going out to war. They hear that drum, long ways. Dum, 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 dum. The drum was sacred. And that drum was made not by just one person, made by the whole tribe. So that's what my grandfather talked about. I seen them and I watched them, but I had to stand back because I was too young. But they told me how it was made. They gave me that story.
Kindergarten to 12th grade, segregated bathrooms and drinking fountains. And that was in the 30s, 40s. And
What did your grandmother want you to know?
Grandparents.
Your grandparents. I know, if you can just pick something. Something for healing.
like that.
When my sister was born in 1936, Rosie couldn't say her name. She couldn't say Diane. And so she told him, she said, just call her Dice. So that's how Diane got her. Yeah, yeah. It stuck with her all through her life.
I want my grandchildren to know everything that my mom wanted me to know, everything that my grandma wanted me to know. But mostly I want them to know that they should pay attention to the time they have with their grandparents. Because so many of us didn't pay attention to that and thought they were going to be around forever. And that there would always be time to learn the lessons they wanted us to learn.
The grandson, he's in college, and pushing how important college is. Make it to the world, struggling like we were. But I also let him know he needs to learn our culture. When he stays with him, he's going to have to teach that to other that kids.
Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt. So I hope that things were shared at the table, and I want to give an opportunity for some people to share so we can all gain from the discussions that you had at your table. So is there anyone who wants to do a quick share out?
What did your grandparents want you to know? Our relative Joe here says his grandfather wanted him to know how to take care of the at'u, the drum, and know that the drum is sacred and it is not made by one single person, that multiple people had a part in creating the drum. When their at'u was burned up on purpose, when their culture in Angoon was being oppressed, the elders got together and wanted to have a new drum made, and so his grandfather imparted that knowledge of that story of where that drum came from and how the drum was made. Our friend Andy, who had to excuse herself for a little bit, said her grandparents wanted her to know, first and foremost, faith in the Lord.
education and family are important. My dad, Gunahin, says his grandfather wanted him to always remember the stories of moving from Gunahu, from Groundhog Bay, and would make him recite that story multiple times, even in a single day, to make sure that he had the details right, and to remind him that he must always start and end the story the same about why the Kagwantan moved from Groundhog Bay. My mother, Wushtak Detla, her grandmother wanted her grandchildren to be successful in the white man's educational system, and therefore forbade her mother and father from teaching the Tlingit language in their household. Mabel, her grandparents wanted her to know putting up food and the protocol for thinking opposites at Kuik, and the reasons for putting up the amount of food. One summer she said she had to put up 7 cases of berries by herself, and most of that was given away to her opposites as a thank you during the Kuik time. And then for my sister, Kunyeh, and myself, Katkun, our grandmother, we pretty much had the same story of what we thought our grandmother wanted us to know is she wanted us to know, first and foremost, who our relatives were in Huna and elsewhere. She wanted us to know our namesakes so that we can always tell people, especially the elders who don't recognize us because we didn't live in Huna 365 days of the year, we could identify back to who we're named after. She wanted us to know our clan, our Kagwantan history, but most importantly, our box house history and our songs and dances.
Ethel told me that her grandma wanted her to know everything in the Tlingit ways, and that there should be more Tlingit language. And I think hearing all these elders telling me some of their childhoods, and some of them didn't grow up with their grandparents. Ganakchish. Okay.
She forgot a couple of more things there. How to make kink and kahak.
Our grandparents wanted us to know how to find, harvest, cook, preserve food from the land. They wanted us to know how to do beadwork, an economic resource, and other art forms. They wanted us to learn Tlingit language because they would speak to us in Tlingit, but they also wanted us to learn to speak English. Big conflict. They wanted us to know what land was protected by different families. They wanted us to appreciate traditional humor that was embedded in the language but kind of fell flat when it was translated into English. The elders around our table would like their grandchildren to know their clan histories. They want them to know how to speak Tlingit. They want them to know about land sovereignty. They want them to know traditional food preparation. They still want them to know how to live healthy off the land. The elders here want their grandchildren to know who they are, their culture, their heritage, their language, and to be proud of it. And a new one. They want our children to know how to be politically active, to speak up for themselves and traditional rights and needs. Gnalchish.
So at my table, there was Margaret Martin. Oh. Tlingit Chenach Anach Gu Yuchat du SOK. My name is Sarah Acevita, or Anach Gut. Margaret Martin wanted to have her grandparents teach her, go through school and don't forget our language. And Gase wanted, or her grandparents wanted, only Tlingit in her home to know the way of life and showed them by living the way of life. And Daphne Wright taught respect of the land and food. They taught by showing her how to do it. And Richard Oliver was taught don't disrespect other clans or people who came into our land, and to learn the subsistence life. Virginia Oliver, her mom grew up in boarding school and there was segregation and there was no place for language in the 20th century. And she grew up with her grandparents on the Mary B. trawler. Florence, her grandparents said, if you're ashamed of being Tlingit, then you won't speak your language. And language was always spoken in her grandparents' home. And Marcia said, knowing the language and the way of life is very important.
And Sarah says her grandparents want her to know who she is. And by doing that, she introduced her to her two grandmas of her clan, and knowing of the subsistence values and the culture. She's very interested. And
my name is Martin Stepton. Our grandparents wanted us to know that you should be a hard worker, that being a hard worker is important, and always doing your part is important. Our grandparents wanted us to know manners, working hard, and I didn't put this in there, but I know that one thing that was brought down to me was to never play around with your food at the table, because there's not always food. My grandparents had gone without and been hungry before, and just one generation ago, people would suffer from starvation, hunger, going without food. So that got passed on to me, and I'm really tough with my kids when it comes to eating at the table and not playing with your food. Thank you.
I could say what I need to say in Tlingit, but because of time, I'll just say it in English. The thing that my grandparents wanted me to learn was not necessarily who I was as it relates to being a Shangukedi, but what it meant to be a human being. Being human. They would say, you are a human being, and being human means you have the ability to listen, to pay attention, to be still, to be quiet, and learn to become focused. They then in turn would say, they would say, you are a human being, and being human means that we have what it takes to be intelligent, that we have intelligence within us as a people. And they would then say, And that is a very significant phrase, Shaya Kedane. Translation sometimes comes and says you're going to respect your face. But for us, what it meant was to learn about ourselves as a people, to learn about for example, for me, I'm Shangu KD. To learn about the names of the Shangu KD people, to learn about the songs that they sang as Shangu KD people, to learn about the land that they had, that they settled on, was being respectful, to learn about how to interact with other people, places, and things, to be able to communicate and realize that we're all part of one particular environment, that we're all linked together, like the way the trees have their roots, that we have that same type of thing. And then they wanted to teach us that you are to work together. And working together didn't mean just working with each other like we are here right now. That meant in respecting of the tree people, the salmon people, Atkatukwane, Hintakwane, the Katat, that meant for us to learn about them and realize that we were linked to everything, that everything had a spirit, that everything we could communicate with them. They taught us science. Science is something our people had, and they taught it to us in their language. And so that's what my grandparents wanted me to be, to realize that there's something special within me and not that I'm better than anybody. To the contrary, I was instructed, the more you know, the more you end up having to be humble, because what you're being given is just that. You're being given information that you didn't have to pay for. And so that's what my grandparents taught me, and they taught me the songs and lists of different other things that I can go on about. But to me, this is still something that is really important today. Today, our kids need to know that they can listen and pay attention and learn. They can also learn to know really that they're very intelligent and that there's nothing, absolutely nothing, they can't learn. 2, 3, that they're to respect themselves, and respect means education, to learn about. When you look at all our stories, they're going to say something in there like Shanakotlach, the story about the salmon people. He's saved by the salmon people because he threw the moldy end out. It was a disrespectful behavior on that young man's part. But when you get into the story, you're going to find he was taught about the salmon people by the leader of the salmon people. And in that thing, they would say, Ya atwune klein awe, to learn how to learn. And so what you're hearing me say is not what I came up with. You're hearing what my grandparents said to me. Those are the things, like as if my grandparents were here saying to all of you the very same thing that they said to me. And that's the reason why my grandparents planted those seeds in me. And that was an act of faith. Akhasawahin. Hastu yejine, hastu yukatanki, adekokatiye. They believed They had faith, and they planted those seeds in me as a child, knowing and believing that it would bring forth fruit. And I think that's even something that my grandparents have taught me, to be able to say, all I have to do is plant some seeds, and I don't have to try to make the thing grow. It'll grow itself.
What would be the most important thing as a grandparent if they were sitting here in front of me, my grandkids? Believe it or not, the most important part I told them, was their subsistence way of life. Learning how to fish, berry pick, smoke fish, dry fish, hunting. And the other part was what we're picking up now, that most of these young people are here learning. Shinket, Haida, Simshian. I didn't quite pick up on it until late in my years, when my grandma and my grandpa always came up and start speaking to me in Tlingit. And I'd give them that fond look of like, huh? And it came to a point where they told me what they were saying. Like if they said haku, back then I had no idea what that meant. And pretty soon they'd gesture to me. This is something that I appreciate all the elders here that are teaching their grandkids, as a grandparent myself, of how to speak our languages. That was and is the most important thing I can think of that I've told these young people here at my table. And I wanted to let them know, thank you for allowing me to speak to them, and for them coming up with their answers. I'd
like to speak on behalf of our grandparents, and this is a collaborative piece from the government of Carcross, Tagus First Nation, Yakutat Tlingit Tribe, First Alaskan Institute, and Goldbelt Heritage. Kindness and respect, why you are who you are, learning to find for yourself. His grandfather was very stoic. Take care of number one, a quote from George Ramus. We are like a tree, need roots to grow. Can't go forward without knowing where you're from. Need more young people to talk, speak up, knowing your clans, relatives, lineage. Most important things are language, way of life, caribou recovery, habitat preservation, how we walk with the land and water to not turn down food when shared. Ganeshish.
Hi, my name is Tony Rivera. What we talked about was what our grandparents wanted us to know was knowledge about the land and water, hunting and fishing being tied to seasons, education, and not just like Western education, but Tlingit education as well. Being Tlingit in the Western world, knowing lineage, family history, and our names, acknowledging family members and to be respectful to them, to be humble, don't be self-absorbed. We also talked about the significance of art and the totem poles and the canoes and
Singik Enoch Sheshach Yukat Dusa, Take Radi Nachat City, Take Radi City Achli Kashan Yudusak. My Tlingit name is Sheshach. I am Take Radi from Angoon. My grandfather is Albert Kugash.
Tlingit Kenach Achyat Dagan Yukat Dusak, Take Radi Nachat City, Take Radi City Achli Kashan Yudusak. My Tlingit name is Achyat Dagan. I am Tekwedi from Angoon, and my grandfather is Albert Kukash.
We sat at the Caliente and Betty Marvin table. What they shared with us was you have the right to belong here.
Family first and God first.
Have respect.
Have faith.
Have a good education. Social media, watch what you say.
Family matters.
You represent your family and clan.
And know your lineage.
You also protect and defend your family.
Hold that together. They laugh. The subject matter is funny.
Dinner together as a family. Always give thanks to God for our sustenance. Language communication between different cultures. Betty Marvin will give an example on this one.
Okay, she did. We sat here, and the two beautiful girls. I mean, they know who they are, and I feel real proud and real honored to be with the younger generation. But I did tell her a story, the communication of language. And when I was growing up, it wasn't easy. And I told her this story that this here native woman from the village came into the ice cream parlor. And I was standing there, and of course, I never did have a very good disposition, or I kind of had a little temper when any of our people were made fun of. And so anyway, the lady came in and she was telling the clerk there, I want a dubbin head balela askling. And she said, and the clerk says, what? Dubbin head balela askling. And I looked at her, and she was kind of chuckling. I says, she wants a double head of vanilla ice cream. Don't you understand English?
Thank you, Betty. Goodness, geez. We're just going to do a real simple wrap-up. It was wonderful to get to know our Tekoidi sisters, little sisters, and their auntie, Chinera, just did such a wonderful job to sit between them, dog salmon between two little bears. But what we wanted to convey to you in our conversation is that our mother was born in Killisnoo and then moved to Angoon after the Killisnoo burned. And when she was around 6 or 7 years old, her grandfather, William George, sent her to Pius Tent to be with her brothers, Rodney and Percy, thinking that the family unit could stay together that way. And that wasn't the case. Her mom was separated from her brothers as well as her community. And there she experienced racism. There she experienced hardship, homesickness, and being so far away. And we shared with them that our mother's first language was Tlingit, and she was punished in Pius X Mission School when she spoke that. And when we came back, or she came back, it's interesting I said that, because it's as if we lived that with her as her daughters, as her sons, as her grandchildren, and that's why we're here today. So the conversation was rather deep, but also hopeful that we hear them speak and know who they are, and that's important, and that's what our parents conveyed to us, that we are responsible for each other, for ourselves, and for our clan, for our community. And it's great to hear the other sharing, because our heads are nodding that too was the values of our family. Ganeshjish.
When I heard this question, I said, well, you can ask my grandma what she wants me to know. She's right here. And everything that the young lady shared was exactly the values I would have said my grandmother and grandfather passed on to us. I just wanted to add one note. Our young people had dance practice last night, and they laughed all through the practice. So it was actually a joy to watch. Our traditional song and dance is serious, but watching our kids laugh and enjoy themselves and enjoy our language and our culture was just a tremendous gift. So they are singing and dancing tonight. I hope you'll all come and see them. So Gunakchish for your words.
At our table, we discussed what our grandparents would want us to know. One thing we noted was how important it is to know your lineage, and something that Dion noted was she wished that she had a chart with every family member's name, traditional and name on it. We also talked about the strength and importance of family, and there was a real emphasis on how important family really is and how it connects us all, because we all are connected. Another thing we discussed was clan history and the migrations. We wanted to know where everyone came from, how they ended up where they ended up. One thing I wanted to know from my grandparents and what my elders want me to know are my clan songs. I wish I knew all of them, but I don't at the moment. Another thing we noted was our clan responsibilities. Our grandparents really want us to know how important it is to know who we are and why we're here. And another thing was how important it is to share our knowledge with each other. Thank you.
Okay, I've been asked by the moderators if we could now simply just give the highlights of our table dialogue.
Some of the highlights were know who you are and where you're from. How to take up things and the history of the family. Understanding history. Understanding how the history affects their lives, and feeling and concerns for the future. The cultural values, respect, landscape, and gratitude, and how to care for one of another.
I'm Natalie Bennett, and my table group of elders, they didn't exactly, from their grandparents, learn their language, but growing up, they wanted to learn it, so most of them know how to speak it. And they had a rough time trying to connect with their culture from their grandparents, but they knew that their grandparents did want them to thrive in this modern world.
Hello, my name is Patrice Diasis, and a few highlights that our table came up with. The biggest one was respect. Having self-respect. If you don't have self-respect, how are you supposed to be respected by others? So respect for ourselves, our land, and basically everything. Another good highlight was education. Her grandparents taught her that education was really important, and she had a lot of teachers in her family because of it. So another highlight was don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Things can always be corrected. So that was another one. Let's see. Another one was the idea of laptops are always going to be around. And when I say laptop, it means sitting on top of your grandmother's lap, and she's kind of giving you and downloading all the information into you. So laptops are always going to be around. Might as well get used to it. And the last one was the idea of walking with your grandmother just throughout Sitka, she said, and seeing everybody along the streets, whether they were wealthy or not. It kind of represents yourself. So the idea of teaching that each person reflects who you could be if you took maybe a different path along your journey. So just reminding you to have compassion for everyone that's in our community. Ganachchish.
And our main highlight here was respect. Our Tlingit people lived here for thousands of years, mainly because of respect. Our people respected the fish, the animals, deer, the forest, and because of respect, everything was in a perfect balance until the Lake Ka came. And in just a short amount of time, with their disrespect, we are having a lot of problems with our fish. Forests are getting cut down. And just the jungles are turning to concrete. As you go down south, they have concrete jungles instead of natural forest jungles. But as our elders and their grandparents told them, respect was everything. You would respect your grandparents. Whatever you first caught, that you would give to your elders because it was a form of good luck. And that you would respect the other people. And so that way, when you respected other things, you'll be respected, especially when you get older. One of the most important things to our grandparents and their grandparents was their children and their future. And that's why respect was so huge. That's how our elders were able to live in perfect balance for thousands of years, because they always thought of the future. And they gave up many joys for themselves, so that way their kids can have the same things that they had as they were a child. And that was the main highlight of our table. Gunachchish. I thank you, elders, for being here.
Anabase Gunashchish, how in Deutschischen for bringing our ancestors into the room. I'm sure they're all cheering. So we are gonna have to wrap up before 3. So we're gonna move on to our next question.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to really quickly honor our elders in the room for sharing what they shared. It's so beautiful to see our elders and our youth together. You know, you two, you're really the most important people in our communities, because as our elders, you carry the flame, the candle of our ways of life, and your pillars in our community. And as our youth, I was so happy to see all of the youth being so brave and standing up, even if it made you nervous and even if it made you giggle. I really love to see all of you up there, so thank you for being brave and taking notes. Thank you. I know it can be scary to put yourself out there as a young person and stand in front of your people, so I want to lift you all up, and you all did a good job. Something that I think is beautiful is, we're all here. We're not here for ourselves, as I think our elder, Bob Sam, shared. He said, I'm not here for myself, I'm here for you. And I think that I can really feel that message in this room right now, and I wanted to lift that up too, to practice our culture, to hear our languages, and to live out who we are. That's why we're here. And we know that that wasn't always the case, that there was a time when we had to put a blanket over our knowledge in order to protect it, because it wasn't safe. And it wasn't safe, it wasn't made allowable by the people that came to these lands. They didn't always have good intentions. But someone shared earlier today that when we tell our stories so our children never forget who they are. So I want to thank everyone in this room for telling those stories and sharing what they've shared, so that our young people and those coming after will never forget who they are. We have such a short amount of time, and I know we could all be here for so much longer, for hours and hours, and unfortunately we have a short amount of time, so we're going to go into the next question. And this question is going to invite us to think about our languages. Many people have already shared about our languages already. In the beginning, we heard people share stories about being forced to speak English, many painful stories. But this question that we want to talk about, we want to give space for people to share and reflect and think about the future that we want for our languages. So I'm going to read the question. What is your deepest wish for the future of our languages? What do you want to see for our languages for the generations to come? So we're going to give everybody time to talk about this at your tables. I know some of you have already started talking about that, but we want to give space for us to think about the future that we want for our people. So you'll have about 15 minutes. You'll have about 15 minutes to share. It'll be a little bit shorter than this round because of time. And once that 15 minutes has gone by, we'll invite just a few tables to share what was said, okay? Okay, we'll try to give as many people an opportunity to share as we have time for. We want to be respectful of the programming that was scheduled to happen at 3 o'clock. So anyway, just to give us enough time, we'll go ahead and go into the next question.
Dance and sing and know our history. And that's my dream, be able to see them all do that. Last celebration, I danced with my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and that was awesome.
Not everybody's the speech maker. Kiyeshi is a good speech maker, but the rest of us, I think, conversation.
That's your wish?
Yeah.
Good wish. My greatest wish is that I hear our language. I'm going to say Tlingit because I am, but it can be Haida, Tsimshian, Athabascan. I want to hear our native languages spoken all over.
Oh, yeah.
I want it to become a normal thing, not an exceptional thing.
Yeah.
I want to hear it in the post office, the grocery, the classroom. So I just want to hear it become used more often. I want our kids to be speaking it, and our grandkids. So I'm hoping it's here for. I just like it, to hear it everywhere.
It cuts you off when you're in some public program or going out doing, and then everybody say, "How? What's up to a SOK?" And I turn around and I'm looking at somebody and I say, "Who's talking?" It's just because you don't see that very often, and they come and talk to you, and they know that you swing it. So that really makes a difference.
Yeah.
What I want the kids to learn is to have respect when they're going to learn the drumming or the singing, is to pay attention to the instructors. Have the instructors teach them to behave. I know it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It needs to be done.
I agree.
A few of us around this still know the whole campus, how we do things. Like you say, a lot of our people, the youngsters especially, they don't really know the pros and cons of our traditional ways of living, our traditional ways of talking, and our foods. We live off the land.
I think it can be done too, talking to everybody, you know. Even when I was traveling up north, building bridges in the villages, Eskimo, old Tlingit guy.
Immersion, probably somewhere. Even
Their
immersion school,
interests.
that's all we work on. That's my wish. Otherwise, our language is going to be.
To get their interest,
I'm getting old.
The kids, you know, they're not interested, and it's hard when they're not interested. I see it a lot because I'm teaching second and third in Klixus that the way they're not even interested.
Train our speakers, I think, would be a wonderful tool that they can train. They can actually really work at immersion rather than us putting our elders in a classroom and call it good, but really help them to teach those who will be coming in and learning how to be language teachers. We're in a crisis. That's what I see. I've been teaching for about 20 years.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of younger ones coming up to take our places.
I think we had a nice, good thrust this past 10 years, probably 7 years. Suddenly, I'm looking in this, I see my former students from the university, and they're working in language programs. That's not enough. We still need people to keep on growing. That's where I'm at.
What did you say? What did you say? I think it's do it now.
When we were kids being taught, it wasn't an option to fail. It was not an option to quit. They instilled in us to keep going further than they ever did. And that, whatever that is lacking. We don't have, we're not passing it on to the children. You know, the world has a saying, it takes a whole village to raise a child. It's true. It really is true. I learned things from my grandparents and from the elders in the village, just the way they treated us. we learned from it. They treated us with respect and honored us, our name. And we need to pass that on to the kids.
Yeah, well, they put it in there. It's on paper, but they're having a hard time implementing it. Saying that it's a required class in Juneau to graduate, that you take 2 classes at Tlingit. They're having a real hard time implementing it, so I don't know if they're going to have to backpedal on that. But it definitely was a big step.
I tried helping out last time.
Pardon me?
I taught a group through the internet. I teach through the internet.
Yeah, so that was part of it.
That's an option again.
Yeah.
If she's willing.
Yeah, so I don't even know if she has high school kids this time, and how are they going to get their credit?
Someone that was working at the school, you know, and the one that non-native, one native was sitting next to me, and the other one that played Shawat was on the other side. And then she was saying, how do you say that, and what does it mean, you know, and she did. And here I find out that played Shawat was the one that was teaching the Tlingit language, but she's getting all her information from this other Tlingit. Why isn't this Tlingit the one teaching this class?
When I said the elders used to get together, they said,
yeah.
He did such a beautiful presentation about all elders for the young people, and I was so surprised how interested the young people were on our own. I know that
it's on the table.
Teaching us teachers and
it's right there.
And stuff.
Right there.
We look at that we're doing really good. And we weren't doing the dance we were supposed to.
What is your deepest wish for the future of our language? My greatest wish is that they listen to the elders when the elders speak. Because in some of our teachers, some of the students are mispronouncing words. The mispronunciation of words from a teacher, and I'm going to repeat that word, a teacher, is what that person's going to know it as. And she's going to argue with the elder. My teacher told me this, instead of going with the elder. So listen to your elders when they speak.
There's so much in teaching and learning.
Always ask questions about something, about our language. I've been talking about this for a long time, our language. I used to stand with Ethel's dad. He always tells me, they know our music, and they know our dancing. But the only thing that's not there is the language. And another thing he used to say, what's it? The story about the song they're going to sing. What I'm trying to say is that today's generation is picking away at even our language, little at a time. So that's what I'm worried about, is the picking away at the language. to try to make it sound like their own, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like, pardon what I'm going to say, rock and roll. Or when you're talking today's modern language, in the English language. See, pretty soon the English is going to disappear and you'll be talking rock and roll. That's the way I'm looking at it.
One more minute to wrap up, and then we'll invite people to share some highlights from their table conversations.
There's lots of people who want to share, so remember to keep it a little brief. I apologize in advance, so they were just raising their hands, so I'll bring it over here first.
Being the youngest, I'm once again voluntold that I have to speak our tables. But the consensus was to share what I had shared for our group, which is what is the deepest wish for the future of our languages. And mine was that my deepest wish is that the dominant society learns to value our language as much as we do, or at least as close to as much as we do, and understands that the way that we view our language is without our language we lose our culture, and that they do their part in restoring our language because they were responsible for what happened to our language. They should also be responsible for helping to restore it so that eventually at all levels of government, city, state, federal, whatever, that it's more mainstream across the school curriculums to incorporate whatever indigenous language is of that area into all facets of the curriculum so that the dominant society, even those who are non-native, will be able to learn the indigenous languages for the lands that they reside on, that they are guests on, and truly just value and appreciate and see the beauty of our language and our culture.
At our table, we were talking about the importance of our language being back in our home environments. You know, I appreciate the school system and teachers teaching our language. Our kids learn all right, but when they come home, there's a different environment. There's a disconnect because now our parents are having to learn how to talk to them in their language as to what they were taught or how they're being taught in school. When I was growing up, our language was in the room. You were in the house. You were in the living room. You were in the dining room where discussions and conversations were being held. Now we're having our kids learn it in a Western style education, and we're learning how to trust that person, those teachers that are teaching our language. So the dialects start to change and words come out different than how we hear it. So the languages need to be brought back into the house so that there's true relationship within the family, so that it's truly woven together, so that it can't be pulled apart by strongholds as what I call Western culture. So the languages, our language needs to be kept in the home environment so that there's a strong relationship to each other. Ganachish.
Our young people, if we could stand, the younger ones, can you stand? For you young people to learn
Ya Tlingit Yukatanki Utusa. If you are to learn, you need to teach these ones. When you see them at home or when you go visiting, whatever Tlingit you know, use it. Use it with them. Because if you don't, what are they going to have? We can't hold on to something for ourselves. It's like if my grandpa and I, we would just talk to each other and we don't say anything to anybody. What good is it? So you young people are intelligent enough to know what I'm saying. You want to learn Tlingit? They want to learn Achitnach too. Are you teaching your younger brother, your younger sister, your niece, your nephew? Are you saying little phrases to them? Are you pronouncing even just the sounds of Tlingit to them? Like my son with his daughter. He's teaching her that. That's hard to say, huh? The L. And she's doing it. She's. That's how you learn. That's how it's used when you use it. They're not going to laugh at you. So you don't have to be embarrassed. What is your deepest wish for the future of our languages? My fear is, who is my children going to talk to when we're gone? My grandpa, my other grandpa, my brothers, my older brothers. Who are they going to talk to? My son really understands Tlingit. Sometimes I think he knows more than I do. Probably does. And my other son, he can speak Tlingit, but he's still not comfortable, but he can sing the songs. So even if you know a song, sing it with your little brother or sister or your niece or your nephew. That's how it's going to continue on. Is when we just do it, oh, we're going to go practice, and the little ones are staying home. My children's mother was explaining today, how did we teach our children? We brought them to places like this. Look at them. They learn how to behave by watching us. If we're kusiyai, they're going to be kusiyai. If you know what that means. So you guys are all being behaved. That's how we learn. And so our children, and now they're comfortable in the environment with all the people. They're not afraid. They're not intimidated. They can speak, but they don't, So, how many is going to teach your little brother? How many is going to teach your little sister? How many is going to teach their niece or their nephew? Or their cousin, little cousins? Say, Khat. That's a Tlingit contract. You just signed a Tlingit contract, Gunaltish.
Okay, I just want to Anna's going to bring the mic around, but I just wanted to remind people, so everyone could hear, if you could keep your side conversations to a minimum.
Tswitskan khenach sego pu khatu sak sego pinudik ang sego up you. When we first started talking about this question, my name is Segop Alfie in English. I'm Simshiano dit Haida dit Kenigani. I'm Simshian Haida and Tlingit. And I'm one of several people that I know of who are attempting to be able to speak all of our languages. And it's a tough path, but it's so rewarding when I can greet my cousins in our languages. When we first started talking about this question, my first gut reaction was, of course, I want our languages to survive. Right now in Algach, the Tsimshian language, and Khadkil, the Haida language, we're losing fluent speakers faster than we're creating them. And it's frightening. So that was the first thing that I said. I want our languages to survive. Several of us are learning them. I feel like more and more people are trying now, which is encouraging. And so that was my first response. My two children are learning some Algach with me, and we use it at home all the time. I tell them to go brush their teeth, take a shower, all in the language. Let's go, time to eat. And it helps because my language is in my mind a lot. So my hope is that children who come to our Some Algach Learners Group, which, by the way, we meet every Saturday from noon to 2 out in the valley. Everyone's welcome. We have toddlers and young people in their 20s and a couple of young men who are growing up hearing and using our language as a normal thing. When I was a child, it wasn't normal to hear Tlingit, to hear Khadkil, to hear Some Algach. It was different, and the sounds. If as an adult, when you start to learn, who feels comfortable speaking all the sounds in Tlingit? Anybody? It's not easy as an adult to make these sounds. We've been speaking English our whole lives, and suddenly we're going sh and and these are tough things to do. But for our children, for young people who are standing up, it's going to be normal for you to hear those sounds and make those sounds, and that's really encouraging. But in my doom and gloom of, oh my gosh, I hope our languages survive, Nabibu, John, I hope you don't mind, I just called you my uncle, put an idea in my heart that I didn't dare to dream. He said he wants our children, our grandchildren, to have to learn English as a second language. He put this idea in my heart, and I didn't, it wasn't even a thing I thought of before. But that is now my deepest wish for the future of our languages.
I had the privilege of speaking with two fluent speakers, and so I just really appreciated the opportunity to hear what their wishes were. And my father here is a fluent speaker, and he was sharing that no matter how hard we wish, if we don't involve ourselves with the language, we cannot teach our children and the next generations. That we need to learn, so in turn we can teach. And if we don't know, we can't teach. And I just thought that was very simple and very true and just beautiful. And I also had the pleasure of sitting with David Katzik, who is sharing his wishes about really wishing that we learn to really speak with the emotion and intimacy, moving the language from our head to our hearts, as the beauty of the language is. Taking that step beyond the nouns and verbs, the phrases that we're learning, and that you need those, that those are important, but really taking it further and capturing the depth and the beauty of our languages. And I just thought that was absolutely beautiful and wanted to share with you. Gunach Chish.
At our table, these young people here came up with a few items on the most important, they believe, is the continuing language in the schools. One of the most important one that I mentioned was, okay, you got a few individuals that are blind. Some can't hear. And the thought of having the Tlingit language, Haida, Tsimshian language put in Braille for them to know. A brick wall this size is so hard because I know that our language barrier is the alphabet, Tsimshian and Haida as well. How do you interpret something in Braille that can't be spelt? The other one was like some are saying, language on the streets, language in the businesses, language in the school announcements, like I mentioned earlier. Why, you sit there and you listen to some events and they utilize 2-3 different languages because there's different nations there. Why aren't we utilizing it at our functions for the elders that don't understand English or don't speak English so they can understand what is going on around them? Teachers. How many teachers of the Tlingit language do we have here in our school systems? How many Tlingit languages or teachers can there be that can go in the school system without having to worry about being questioned about how and why you want to teach our language? Those are questions that, those are the barriers that we face. The Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian. I know there's a border there also, but my cousins should know. I spoke and can not fluently, but understand and speak it. The Filipino language. My uncle, Rudy Govina, was teaching me before he passed away, and then it was passed on by his friends. Like Paul said, a simple phrase. How many of these individuals, students that came into town, can count in Tlingit? How many of you can count in Tlingit? Not very many. But there you go. You're sitting here, and I appreciate it, and you have a room full of knowledge that everybody can sit here and teach you. And the other one was, and I appreciate this part, is that they're sitting here, out of class, out of school, learning Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian language. Is my 5 minutes up yet? But anyway, I appreciate them, and I want to thank all the output that's been brought forth by all our elders. And thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Marcia Hodge.
I'm going to pick on the students that are in my classes. Gaidanak. I would just like you guys to know that these kids are taking Tlingit language over the internet. We're doing the best we can, and it's happening through a Goldbelt program. And Autlain Gunalchish. It gives, we're trying to use the internet and utilize it. They're earning high school credit and university credit. Some of them are freshmen, they're beginning to start, and we're hoping to expand to, last year we had a few students in Juneau, and so we're learning how to use that so that our kids can, and I'm learning too. So, Gunalchish, thanks, guys.
What is your deepest wish for the future of our languages? Gay said to have everyone to speak Tlingit language, and Margaret said when learning language, it wasn't an option, and it takes a whole town or a whole village to raise a child. Richard said elders teach Tlingit language instead of being scared from boarding schools. Virginia wanted more children interested in the language. And Marcia said they need more dedicated workers to develop language for learning, and push for more immersions and training speakers for immersions and helping them.
And Sarah said having more people interested. She had a good list here. Having the languages through school, and having more teachers, helping the teachers, those that are in schools, in high school, helping them to be more advanced. And I think one of is having the school districts help to seek funding to support the language programs that are in the schools.
That's part of getting old. I just want to comment on a few things that I saw today and heard. What Paul Marx did. I'd like all those kids, students that stood when Paul was speaking to stand again. All you that are, when Paul was speaking, and all the ones that are just spoke, the teacher here from Cluck One, I'd like you all to stand. Our language is pressing down on you guys. And I'm very happy to see all of you wanting to learn and know the language. One of our precious items is our language. And I'm very happy to see so many of you wanting to learn our ancestors' language. And as I always speak when I speak to the teachers, And sometimes I have to speak to English. They're the ones that's going to continue. You are the ones that's going to continue our language and our culture. So don't give up. Because if you do give up, it'll probably become a habit with you. So don't give up. When things seem to be going wrong, or since you can't understand something, just let it go for a while. Sit down and think about it. Sit down and think about it. Thank you all for wanting to know our language, our ancestors' language. You heard the elders speaking. So when you heard them speaking, ask somebody that knows the language that's sitting next to you. I couldn't understand this word. I couldn't understand that word. What does it mean? You ask questions. Ask questions. We are depending on you to continue our language. All of you. We are depending on you. Don't let us down.
So I got a lot of feedback from all of the elders sitting at my table. So some things that were said were continue what we're doing with today, like with the language, but teach more of the Tlingit kids and people instead of more focusing on Tleka, because she was saying that so Tlingits could teach other Tlingits and not have Tleka teach us about our language. And another thing that was said was roundtables are really good, but a vision is have a big roundtable of language. And we should listen to elders when speaking, because a common thing that is around is when teachers could be teaching us mispronunciation. In today's generation is kind of picking away at language. And another one is she works in school district as a cultural specialist, and she really likes teaching respect for ourselves, others, elders, and in other words, authority. Pay attention to what you say, because if you don't pay attention, you could cause some problems between clans or other people. If you like all of the language and workings is setting the foundation of our way of lives. And that's all I have to say. Gunachchish.
We've had some of the young people stand up, but I'd like some of the elders that are helping the younger people to speak the Tlingit language to stand up right now. Could you all stand up? I want you young people to look at these people here. Hasta tawada hawa kachyasaku yiyukatangi. From them, you will learn the language. So I'm going to say gunalchish to all of you that basically have helped for us to be doing what we're doing today. And the thing with respect to our language, the thing that burns within my heart is when people laugh at each other and pull each other down by commenting on how they're speaking and saying words that might be not according to their dialect. And I'm here to say this, that there was a song that was called Imagine some time ago. It's a beautiful song. And the reason I mention that is because our people would take things like that to bring a point home. Can you imagine one day when, as we're speaking our language, regardless of the color of our skin, where we come from, imagine us being able to get along with each other, to not pull each other down, to not tear ourselves apart. Because what I'm sharing with you comes from my heart. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just sharing that if one day that we could look like this man here, and if I was saying something, could you stand up? This man's like my grandpa right here. What if I was laughing at him because he said something that wasn't equal to the way I think the language should be, and I haven't done that. But if I did that, I would be laughing at my own grandpa. That is the way I'm sharing right now, that I really believe the purpose of our language is so that we can work together because our children see it. The language we speak with our bodies are louder than the Tlingit language or the English language we speak. So that's my dream, and I don't think it's a bad dream. Thank you all for the work that you're doing, and please don't misunderstand me. I just think we need to be able to look at that, and it's something that I think that should be looked at and thought about and figured out, because we're looking for a healing to take place with us. And when we need to heal, you need to know what needs to be healed. And so I step out maybe on thin ice, but I'm willing to do it because I believe in you. Thank you for standing. I'm sorry for keeping you standing too long.
Thank you, David. Wakohag satis chasakwich Isai Gunachish Ade Sacha Achia. Chatchatsu Dikikeu Tiach Satini Achtu Isacha Ach. I felt the strength in what he had to say. And what he had to say strengthened me as well as it strengthened himself. We need to learn our language. One of the people I admire is Duffy Wright from Hoona. One of the finest teachers of the Tlingit language I have ever worked with. Her and I went to the university up here because we couldn't read the Tlingit language. We knew it, but we couldn't read it. We knew it, but we couldn't write it. And we learned. And we went back home. Because we learned, we were able to teach our children. If you learn, your language, you will be able to teach your children. Teach them what you know. Yachachka, Iyachka Ichasatu, Iyukatangi, Tashayekoti, Waechua, Iyachka Ichasatu, Yachachka, Hastu Ichasatu, Yachike, Yacheke, Tis Ade Yenkati, Waechua, Iyachka Ichasatu, Achkun, Chakwe Yek Yanakajin, Hinhogut, the two Satsinias, the people in training used to step into the freezing cold water. You saw in a newspaper how some people went into the water, but the water that the elders trained on was even colder than that. It looked like it was steaming and it was so cold. And they went in there to learn the strength of their heart, of their feelings. Ita shuch is two satsinias. Go into the water, that your mental strength will be ready for you to stand up and take control of teaching your children. You're doing it out of love and compassion. Hinachnaya, Gwyneth Chish.
Gwyneth Chish, Kascha, Achonch, City, Hakusti, Kayan Nakut, Chashu, Han, Utusiku, Hakusti, Wasaktayeni, Kahasai. We have a lot of names from our other relatives. Some of them are gone, but they're not really gone because they do come back. I can say that because I've witnessed it. I have a name from a grandma in Sitka. I got her son's name. Then in Huna, I got James Johnny's name also. We that have names from our relatives that have gone on, we cherish them. We can't put it away. We can't hide it. Like Billy was saying, the songs, the stories, we're talking amongst our young people. They need to learn. And the only way they're going to learn is come to the elders that know our traditional ways and how we live with each other, whether we're a nephew, whether we're an uncle, or whether we're a cousin, or a brother, or a father. All this counts. I know that. So I thank each and every one of you for being here, because I didn't expect to come, but I had to do something in order to get my mobility a little different than the way I'm sitting now. That's the reason why I'm here. And I'm glad I can share a few words of wisdom, the wisdom that's been handed down from all our relatives.
that I do appreciate it because I'm thankful that I was taught amongst my grandfathers, my uncles, my older brothers, my other uncle, you heard him speak earlier. And we know who they are. We know why they talk to us. They talk to us so we won't forget. Once we forget, then we can't do anything. I know Billy knows what I'm talking about. David knows. Herman knows. Because we were brought up that way. So once again, I say thank you, my relatives. And then from my other relatives up north, Kuyana, way up north. So I thank you for giving me the time to share a little bit of something with each and every one of you. Take care of your little ones, because they're going to take our places. Without them, our language, the way we do things, the way we harvest, they need to be taught so they can carry it on. And I'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you, because it's very important what we're all talking about. And I thank you, and maybe you have a wonderful day and evening. Gonna shish the kativan, achet kosani, achishas, akakas, achatas. Yeah, gonna shish. Thank you very much.
So for my table, for the question, what is your deepest wish for the future and our languages? A big one was family learning. Bringing back the language in our household and making that normal for our younger people who are going to school, and also learning it in the schools as well, just to normalize that again. Another one was to build a bridge for people who are learning and those who do know the language. So just kind of opening that a little more so that the people who do have questions and maybe need help rephrasing a word or don't get the pronunciation right the first time can ask and feel comfortable to our elders and our language speakers. The next one was to see people speak to each other with all of our different languages. So not only learning our own, but others around us as well. And to be humble with one another. To have positive thinking and to be kind. Ganachchish.
I'd like to say before all the young people that were getting up, there's probably some of you that are half and half that are afraid to get up. I'd like to tell you what happened in Sitka when the seniors graduated. The program opened with 3 Tlingit students speaking and welcoming the town that came to watch them graduate. And they brought the house down. It made me cry because I didn't expect it. But they're teachers here amongst you. So they were little ones that began. There's our teachers, and 2 of them were Duncans and 1 was Perkins. Give her a hand. So I think those are that I know I've heard it all my life that But it began with the first speakers that spoke English, our language. And we need some of these teachers to help our young people keep our language alive. And I was just proud of these 3 young people that graduated and used only our Tlingit language when they spoke. SOK.
I just wanted to add to that. I didn't learn our language off paper or go to school for it. I think a lot of us that can speak the language, we all grew up hearing it every day of our lives. Like the Tlingits would say, "Atuka yakea or what? Ya yukatanike to achter. Achiacha yeko genko tutsiku." This is how we knew our language. We grew up hearing it every day of our lives. And there was a lady over there that mentioned something that really caught my attention. When the kids leave school for the language and go home, it's a different environment. I know that a lot of you are going to school, learning the language. So it's probably different for you, because when you go home, it's different. My wife, Vida, I don't know, I think some of you know my wife, Vida Davis. Her Eskimo name was Spoon, Vida Spoon. She grew up hearing the language every day. One day she was telling me that her adopted mother told her a story. And then she asked Vida to repeat it back. And she did. But she missed a few words. So when they got through eating supper the next day, her adopted mother told the same story again. I think they had to go through it 3 times. But she finally got it on the 3rd time. All the stories were in Tlingit. So those of us that know the language, us elders sitting here, we all grew up hearing the language every day of our lives. And it wasn't on paper, just like all of you that are going to be teaching the language now. It's going to have to be all on paper. But don't feel bad, because nowadays too, the German language is on paper, the Japanese language is on paper, Norwegian language is on paper. All the other nations, if you want to learn their language, you have to learn it off a book. Thank you all for listening to me. Gonna chesh.
Hayuch katangi awe, ha she yach yati, ha tut ya Canadain. It means our language is like blood. It flows within us. And our language leads us towards our ancestors. We follow them, and we will prepare a place not only for ourselves, but for our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and even our grandchildren and their grandchildren. My prayer will be this: let our language flow well through our mouths like a river so that it can exist forever. Also, let our language be recorded so that even if our elders are gone, that their voices shall be heard. Gunach.
This is awesome. No, Norma, and she's a PhD. I mean, Tlingit. And I have a young man, I call him my grandson, Joseph Mark Sutsu. He's going to school to do his master's, you know. This is awesome. That she's Tlingit and she made it. I keep telling her, it's time. Don't talk about yourself. And I remember the preacher telling me, when you get it, you're the one that's supposed to do it. Yeah, well, I just want to do this because it's such an honor to have someone to do something like this among our Tlingit folk, among us, you know. Ganachchish.
Anabase, thank you everybody for sharing. I'm sorry we're out of time for sharing. We're going to move on to our next portion. If I could, I'm going to walk over to Sandy here. We have something special, so.
We would like our youth ambassadors, actually, I think we want everybody in the room to pick a side. So Eagles on one side and Ravens on the other. Looks like Ravens over here and Eagles on this side. Gunakchish.
Gunakchish anyat klusani akwan. Neki klaye khadua sak nu hit. Dach. I just want to say Gunakchish to Goldbelt and all the people that have helped make this event possible. I'm from the Wichketong clan, the Shark clan, and we were asked to sing a memorial song that equates to the loss of our language. The most horrific song that we could come up with, owned by the Wichketong, out of New Hit, is the Sea Monster song. I'll translate it afterwards, but I'm going to sing it first. It was taught to me by Wichkutaha, Jimmy George Sr., Kudeshka, Lydia George, Janusz Tuk, Adeline Jim. And it's not me standing here singing this song to you. It's all the Wichketong people that ever was. Janusz Tuk, like Janusz Tuk, Tlauquats, Skyich Tin, Janusz Duth. They're here with you. The people from Berners Bay. This is their voice. All the sharks are here in spirit. And on stage are all the sharks that are here in the room. So here it goes. Kayes wuduacha unakade adak yeach tunasticha nushaka hide uwe anyat kahite jai kasikak ha 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 huwa he ye huwe uwa ah ha huwa huwe uwa ah ha huwa huwe uwa jaye wusi jak kwa Achlich ewe ua wane jisiti ani uhu ani kauhagu ati wushli jakwa ahue ua ahua ye hue ua ahua ye hue ua ahua ahua Jai sai guakte tuskin guati hanch anjak tuske yes guatanja achlich ehue The interpretation of the song is this. When the raven caws in the morning, everything turns into stone. This is what I believe has happened to New Shakahidi. It is turned into a skeleton. People who lived in Bernards Bay were wiped out by smallpox. This is how I feel about you, my grandfathers. I have nothing now. I will take your names and I will put it on myself and stand with them, my dearest grandpa. At least our grandchildren will have Tlingit names. Goodness, cheesh.
Kunit kanai utuacha wasai tundatanich saticha ya hatlingit yukatangi hashukakau yukatangi wasai tu anuk ya hashukakau has ishandin hasatu ticha Tlas yukatank yewe hasin has ayakanuch atle dewe tatlingit kinach iqedetan achkawa uhan utuwanukha hashukakawu hastu utuwanuk hastu nugu Wasa hastu shtanuk hastu tuwu tuwacha wekachta shiicha yitisakucha kachta shii wutushiin ya ha shukokao yesadatahe achkawe wutuwasigu Wutushi Tsuha Ai, Tlakakade, Kashiyi Kaktashiyi, Tlatkatuasigu, Yikashiyi, Jaskugeyi, Atyanach, Ken Yakyete, Wutuasigu, Wutuach, Tutuha Unuk, Achkawe, Wutuasigu, Yakashiyi, Kaktushi, Antietli Kayacha, Outliech Yashe, Jade Natiga, Jade Natiga had Akida de Sheikh Yit Kityanai. Lest our languages left to our heart Yanalchin. Akida de Sheikh Jade Nikitika Hatlilko has Ani Hasehe Koktuach. We don't want our land to remain desolate. And by us singing and continuing our language, in the Tlingit language that we've been taught, as we heard from my grandpa King Geiste, Watutliech, Hajies, Hadikian Kau, Hashigenya, Hayeth, Yewedu Sagun, Hachak, Ya Hashigenya, Desai, Kadehasawati. So our feelings are mutual with our opposites. And we don't want their tears or the song to just fly around in the air, but that we receive them. And we balance it, and then we will not sing the whole song because of my sister and our clan members, Bill Fawcett being one of them. We have not finished with their rights in the Koik. The song was composed after Antietli came back from prison. They were falsely accused of killing a family and sent to prison. We don't know how long they were down there in prison, but then they were exonerated. They found out they actually didn't kill that family. But when Antietli came back home, as he did before he got arrested and sent away, he would walk out his door and look upon the village. And I suppose at that time he could see everyone working and doing what needs to be done. But coming back from prison, when he came outside the door, there wasn't as much activity as there was before. And so the emotions got the best of him, and that's when he composed this song. Koktushi Yijis Yadat. Guk. Yo hey 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 yo Utwasigu EGS. Kochtusen EGS. Ja, echtawed jedu sagun. Kiki. Kiki. De Tawasigu, awadlaki kawe kaikahegu. Satin yes. De katka ide kodashi atakahe. Atkawe tasatka tin kawaak. Akawe adewagut ayes. Wasawone Tiadeo awut yawati kawe kaikahegu at gatude yana gutka Tadasa ayatin yana shikhat we tlatkikak Aktiasaha Tude natinus khadut the gwesi tut Aktiasaha Tude natinus Tadasa Aktiasaha Yagewe Tude wati khat Tadasa yana shikhat Tuwe at qinayat Aktiasaha Tude natinus Aktias Yewe qanutka Akawe khindi yana tletka wekit kak Awadlak at the key. We dawahan we hoot. Awatini, awsatini away adakawe. Akayes to the Yinde wujigit kawe ka adak. It is so difficult when I'm feeling many don't understand. But this shaman, this man was seeking after power, and so when he went in, was transported from Yandistakya across Lynn Canal and walking in the forest, he'd see anything that's running on the ground and he'd say, "You're going to be mine." Put it in his bag. "You're going to be mine." Put it in the bag. Everything's flying, it's going to be mine, puts it in the bag. And when he got to a point, he was climbing up a cliff. And when he got to the top, there was a bear there, and it, "You can be mine." He fell unconscious. A lot of power, all the things that was in his bag went into him. Point Sherman was where that was at. Right by Berners Bay. What can say ye? So we say it in Tlingit. Ye quite clear. What can say ye? From there he started going back. He saw a fire. Men standing around it. He walked towards that fire, walking. And the two men says, "Huh. And they disappeared. When he got to the fire, Yinde Wujigitsa, he fell again. Then he started walking again. When he came to, he lost consciousness again and he found himself in Yandistakya. That's when, this is not the whole, there's some parts in there that I have not touched upon, but we're always pushed for time. But when he ended up on Yandistakya, all the birds were flying around him. And the clan leader, "Adenago Keshkas, Adenago, what's going on down there?" Adehaswa, they went over there. Hasaw Sitin, Haweka. He told him, "Hu'aha, Rikriya." Did you get away power? Uwayaha, Uwaya. Looks like he got the power. Adakawe would hajiwa ya na geen gudat na tukter ye to wasak. Ja dusa kasati niktain our shot. Whoever's feeling sick or having trouble, it's not just for our ravens, but it's for everybody because of all the different things he caught and put in his bag went into him. And this tunic was made for us to use. So symbolically, we bring it out and we will do the chant. Ha klaku konsaye, hey! Stomp your feet, eagles. Especially shoe. Ha klaku konsaye, hey! Ha klaku konsaye. Ha kloku konsaye, hey! Yewa, gunchish.
My grandchild here and my younger brother says, say something. Ach, toasiku chatsu, ya yagi, ya tlingidyu katangidadat. Tachwasach tuulitsin, takat Johan isachwachi, kunacha yachawa, utusikuka, naslie aya, yahakusti, Diego genk antus queen, John kwa, achtuik takat Johan isachwachi, ye yakunachish.
So we had talked earlier about what we had hoped for in terms of healing, and thank you, Dinah and Paul, for helping us to work through the removal of grief when it comes to the loss of our languages and our work to revitalize them. We are taking over the time of another workshop, so I want to make sure that we give them time as well, and that workshop's on cultural integration. So very important topic, and that does include our languages too. We have an evening event here. On your agenda, it says 6 p.m. and 6:30 p.m., and then I think we have one other agenda that says 5 p.m. So I hope you will all come back and join us for this evening. With the removal of grief, we want to turn over our time to a happy time. And so that is what our evening together is about. And we will be singing and dancing and hopefully enjoying each other's company. And so when you do come, just make yourselves at home. We are providing dinner this evening. And I want to thank each of you for sharing your words and your hearts, your hopes today. Gunik Chish and Gunik Chish to FAI, First Alaskans Institute, for helping us with this gathering today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa Worrell.